Testing, testing, testing. Buenas tardes from the beautiful Costa del Sol. That is, if you can hear me. As per, can you hear me? If I'm crackling, that is Bluetooth interference because that would not be an issue with the sound. That would just be Bluetooth interference from the shenanigans and ongoings beyond the hedge. It's a little bit of a, let's say, subdued day today on the patio, which is great. I hope the light is going to be so less harsh in comparison to what we've had in the past. It has suddenly gotten very cloudy. And behold, we had rain last night, which I didn't see. I had no idea. So what you're looking at is my Laelia briageri. She's a rapiculus Laelia, and this is the first time she has blessed us with 2 spikes. So, let me know if you can hear me. If not, I'm gonna have to yodel. Denise, hello. Verdant turf, hello. Woohoo! Isn't she purdy? Thank you for the confirmation. I appreciate that. So she's been in bloom for a good part of 6 days now. So the orchid is back here, and she has extremely long spikes, which of course you can stake, but I kind of prefer the natural pendant look. And for the first time, she's blooming for us with 2 spikes. I guess she has to make up for the fact she didn't bloom for us last year. And that's just fine by me. And just before I went on the live stream, I had a pollinator all over her. And I thought, yeah, that would have been a nice little image to capture, but no dice. It flew away. Probably because it's not fragrant, but isn't that pretty? I love it. I have to be super careful with these spikes, and I put her here on the east side because it's quite breezy where we're going to go and talk about seedlings. So I hope Denise is having a wonderful day. It's very cloudy here, so I hope you got the sunshine yonder, Denise. I'm actually quite glad for the clouds because then I hope the colors will come out a little bit truer and I'm not fighting with the transmitter heating up. Anyway, I'm going to take a glug of my beverage, and we are going to head over to the staging area where King is already waiting. What a visual. Let me show you. Check this out. It's like, I know you're going to be coming here, so I might as well, chill out right here. Hey, Linda, it's good to see you. Welcome to the patio on a not so sunny afternoon. But I am loving it. So there's King, all ready to go. He's going to get up all in my business, but at least he's not where the tripod's going to be. We're making progress with regards to him understanding his location when I'm filming. Poor guy. But anyway, there he is. Baloo is chilling inside. Okay, so what I'm going to also do, I almost forgot, I need to hook you up to my extension cord, as batteries drain quickly with the warm temperatures as well. We're going to let that gate stop clanging and at least avoid that nonsense. I'm going to have a drink. I'm already parched. A sip. Sorry, that sounds like I'm on the gin and tonic. No, I'm not. Alrighty. Oh, King. Sorry, that wasn't a call for you. You don't do alrighty. Since when do you respond to that word? Okay, stay out of my cables, King, okay? Stay out of my cables. All right, maybe I shouldn't lean it that way. Maybe I should do it this way. There we go. And away from you. All right. How's everybody doing? Hey, Fernanda. Obrigado that you are here. Welcome to the patio in southern Spain over yonder. You told me that you had rain yesterday, and I thought, oh, I'm glad that's not me. Well, I went to bed and woke up to the most amazing thunderstorm that none of my orchids could really benefit from because I got the umbrella up and I had my hanging baskets under the portico. Anyway, it wasn't scheduled, but we got some rain yesterday. Rightio. Now, in the description, I have several questions. Several. I don't think we'll get through them all. Maybe if you ask questions, we'll get through some of them. These are the most common questions asked about seedlings. I was actually thinking of going through them one by one. That would be 19. Huh. Maybe we'll get around to it. Maybe not. We can do a part 2 after that motorcycle there has passed. Alrighty. Let's start with the general seedling care. I do remember that is actually the first question, general seedling care. They are babies. They need nurturing, which means that anything that their general care guide would depict the orchid that you have, you need to up that, with the exception of high light. So higher humidity, higher water requirements, but not the light a mature orchid, when the seedling matures, can handle. So they do need a lot of mollycoddling. And if you are in an environment that has super high humidity, you are all set. If you're in a climate that is a little bit drier, you need to make sure that you combat and counteract the lack of your humidity in your ambient air with higher humidity around the seedling, which means more water retentive media, or you put your little humidity tray underneath with pebbles, anything that you can do to up the humidity, because the little structures tend to transpirate and they lose a lot of water. And that's what we need to avoid, and that's why humidity is fundamental when it comes to seedling care. As you can see with my cattleya here, this is my tenuis, and you can see that all the older leaves are extremely, let's say, shriveled. They don't look happy at all. This cattleya would prefer to also have a little warmer temperatures than I do in my winters. So this cattleya is under a permanent kind of stressful situation. We are only now coming into the temperatures that this little cattleya likes. And she's a bifoliate, of course. So we're dealing with that attribute as well. She's not a generous root grower. And all these things are sort of like, well, counterproductive to when you're trying to get a seedling to grow on. You don't want them too cold, you don't want them too hot, and you definitely don't want the media to dry out, and you definitely don't want low humidities. And most of these factors are some that factor into my conditions. But having a weak orchid, especially seedlings, because their cuticles are softer, more tender, you also have to watch against pests, any pest infestations. They love the little babies because they can get at them, and you can see my tenuis has suffered, and bifoliate attracting scale as per. However, she is clean now, and this orchid has never been repotted since she arrived in my collection. Baby! California in the house. On the patio, I mean. Good to see you. Hello, gorgeous. Thank you. It's very early where you're at. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for dropping by on a Saturday morning. Hope you're enjoying your weekend already. Right. So this one hasn't been repotted, which is another thing. Now, I'm just going ad lib. I'll check my questions afterwards and see if I've even covered them. You don't want to disturb your seedlings too much. However, of course, when you've got them in organic media, what does that mean? Well, I would always say when your roots start crawling out of the pot and you are not able to provide enough moisture for the roots, then you need to think about repotting your seedling. And for organic growers, that is, of course, your pot size is relevant. Don't let the media dry out. You may want to opt to use a lot of sphagnum moss in your media mix. And if you prefer to add a little bit of bark in there, then of course seedling bark, a little bit of perlite, anything airy to stop the moss from, let's say, compacting. Because the moment moss gets wet, the degrading starts, And with that, it will start to compact over time because it then should be consistently wet. So you want to counteract that with a media mix that at least breaks down the future, the compacting of the sphagnum moss, so that you don't have to repot every 6 months, which is what can happen with sphagnum moss when it has to be kept consistently wet. And I'm not even discussing root sizes when it comes to these orchids as we have them with seedling, because we are not going by root size, we are going by structure size. What you see on the top of the pot determines what needs to happen in the pot. Chunky roots, let's say on seedling Phalaenopsis orchids, should not have chunky bark because it's going to dry out far too quickly. That includes in a humid environment. Yes, just because you have high humidity, and I consider 80% and higher consistently, that's what I consider high humidity, your seedling roots will struggle in chunky bark. It is not damp enough. So in a very humid environment, you do want to use maybe bark, seedling bark, and 50-50 mix of sphagnum moss, because your humidity will then also buffer against any kind of, let's say, drying out of the little structures. So when it comes to seedling care, the main thing you need to focus on really is how consistent can your humidity be and how consistent can your temperatures be. I'm going to quote this in Celsius, so forgive me. I'll put things in the description as a conversion. You don't want your seedlings to get colder than 18 degrees Celsius, and if possible, not expose them to the heat, mainly dry heat, but to the heat of anything above 25 degrees Celsius, if that's pushing it. 30 degrees, you're out. You need to take your seedlings away from that area where it can get to those high temperatures, move them somewhere where it's more protected, and then bring them back out when things are more tolerable. So 18 to 25, maximum 30. And with high humidity, you get away with a lot more in those temperature ranges than you would with low humidity. So, and that was my little opening speech. Now, let me see. Everybody with a channel, remember what we do here? We put channel links into the chat for future reference. The Verdant Turf says, just realized I've been watching your old videos all along on your other account, and I bet you were talking to Fernanda Nacimiento Orchids and Succulents. I'm hoping anyway. I remembered last week or the week before, I was answering to Samurai Julie-san's calcium deficiency comment in the chat, and I just assumed she was referring to me. It could have been she was talking to somebody else. So if I jumped the gun there and butted in on a conversation that I knew nothing about, my bad, je m'excuse, forgive me. Oh, this breeze is wonderful. I hope it is not too obvious on the mic. Anyway, so when it comes to media mix, I was just talking about keeping it on the more water retentive side so that the roots always have moisture around them and keep the humidity nice and consistent around the structures. This one has never been repotted. It arrived in my collection in September of 2018. And back in that day, I was repotting all my orchids into leca and self-watering, and I was learning about leca. So this orchid in this pot has a size mix of leca of all different sizes. Since then, I have learned that when it comes to seedlings, no matter the size of the roots, you want the smaller size when it comes to inorganic media. Smaller leca raises more humidity. So this is one of my OG errors when I was learning about leca, and that gate. And the roots, while they look nasty, there are roots in the pot, and I should have done a repot through the winter, but I'm so tentative about repotting during the winter with a seedling because I cannot provide the aftercare, the appropriate aftercare. But she has grown 2 new roots. She is super generous on the root front, not. But anyway, she has grown her roots, and I am not going to be repotting her anytime soon. and the roots are viable, or else she would have collapsed. Any stress you see now is just the history of winters and drier summers, and the fact that my media mix is not small leca, but you can see a lot of large leca in there. See all along the top there? See, no bueno. By contrast, not that this orchid looks great, okay? We'll get to that. But the leca is small here, okay? This is my Dowiana variety aurea. She looks horrendous because she's a seedling and she cannot cope with the conditions that I have during the winter. She doesn't get high light and she gets cold temperatures, and she is in leca. Last year, I switched a lot of orchids that I have in rescue mode because I haven't figured out the leca ratio, switched them into lava rock. If this orchid starts to show me new roots, she is going into lava rock because she is so much more delicate as a seedling that, as her big counterpart that I repotted in a recent video, her roots cannot handle the evaporative cooling effect of the leca, whereas the big orchid with a lot more energy and reserves in her can handle it. So this is too harsh of a pot media mix based on my conditions. If you were in a humid environment, this would work for you. Would absolutely be no problem. And besides that, of course, she has had scale attack like no tomorrow. And this is very concerning because obviously I have my seedlings all lined up so that their care can be pretty much, you know, like an assembly line. And she was next to the tenues that had scale. I did not see her contracting scale. So she's really, really strong. I think she should be okay. I think I may get some with a root or two growing. And by that time, she will go into lava rock, which also has to be small. All right? So whatever you do, when you get your seedling, first of all, I would not repot straight away. But when you get your seedling and you do repot, small media. And if you're not doing inorganic media, don't let the media compact. Keep the principle of not disturbing the orchid. Make sure that the orchid can be in her pot based on what you can recognize about her root growth at the time of repotting for at least 2 years, if not 3. That is how I would do it. Unless, of course, you are happily surprised by the magnificent root growth that you are achieving, and you have to repot, at which time I highly recommend all you do is uppot. Don't mess around too much, just uppot, and it'll be absolutely fine. And depending on the vigor of your orchid, you can uppot and just fill around with fresh media. You will get away with it. Remember, we don't want to lose the humidity so that these little ones can actually start growing. And for that reason, I grow a lot of my seedlings in self-watering or semi-hydroponics because the reservoir always gives me a little bit of a humidity increase around these tiny structures. So this one we haven't seen for the longest time. This is Laelia xanthina that I got from Matt by Nature. And she came, well, let's just say, on the verge. But she is on the verge of coming back, let's put it that way. So I don't understand the spotting that she came with. I have several orchids from that delivery with the weird spotting. She has never had scale, but she also just now lives inside. I don't have her outside because I'm trying to get her to recover. So while the others are outside on the east side of the patio on the lowest shelf possible, so they don't get any sun at all, but they get nice warm residual heat from the terracotta, this one is indoors. However, she's doing great. And here all I want to show is the fact that I have small lava rock. And it works really well because lava rock, while it doesn't wick, and we are back. Okay, so that is my xanthina. At least here we have a positive report. She is finishing with this new growth, and her root growth is doing really well, and that I'm so pleased about seeing, as she is a gifted orchid. The same goes, are you the variety Cerula? Yes. The same goes, I got this one from Matt by Nature as well, for my Cattleya maxima, variety Cerula. Small lava rock, I had learnt my lesson about leca, small leca, etc., not working for seedlings based on the cold temperatures. I'd learned my lesson by then, so when these guys arrived, they went straight into this setup, and I'm very happy to show you that it is working while things are slow to grow, which can happen with seedlings. They will throw a strop much, much quicker than their mature counterparts. What's the interference? So if you've seen me step back a bit with my equipment, that is because I'm wondering if there's interference with the router. I only have my backup device with me. Anyway, I hope that the interference is not that obvious on your end. Hey Debbie, you're having issues with the sound? I was just mentioning about interference. If you're hearing crackling, that is probably Bluetooth interference from other devices on the other side of the hedge. It froze for a while. Yep, I was suddenly having to say that I am still live. I had to confirm on the screen here that I'm still live, so I do apologize for that. Okay, we're back. Awesome. I'm happy to see that. I have to watch what's going on because normally I don't have issues here, but who knows? It's a Saturday, there's many people maybe using the interwebs. Anyway, where was I? Ugh, I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, moving on. We'll just keep updating. Maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't. And if somebody remembers what I was talking about, then let me know. Let me know. Leah Parody. Yeehaw, Texas, on the patio. It's good to see you. You've been busy with your planty jungle. It's been amazing to watch you. All right, Denise, thank you for that. It's okay for Portugal as well. Fabuloso. Righty-ho. Who are you? Oh, right. This is, don't know what it is, but the label says Cattleya Moonbells. And she has Laelia purpurata vibes on the pictures there, which, can I pull out? Yeah, no root is grabbing it, so let me show you. You see, those are her parents. Okay. These, well, there's another one I've got. Have I got you with me? Did I bring you out? Anyway, never mind. We just need to see. Okay. I know I'm live. Would you please let me stay live? Stop with this messing around. My screen is flashing me all kinds of messages and not your chat. Okay. This one was part of the deflasking batch from the company, but she was not deflasked. She had already arrived in a little pot. My deflasking attempt was an utter and complete failure. And I can tell you, I wish I had had my channel then, because I could talk you through and show you my mistakes with flasking. I was discussing that once with Orchid Ninja Samurai Julie-san, and I recommended what she should do with her seedlings back in the day when she was deflasking, based on the mistakes I made, and it's working. I cannot show any footage, I can't document anything, because back then I was not thinking of YouTube at all. I was busy with unboxing, getting orchids settled, in between working. It was mayhem those days. Boxes were coming in faster than I could unbox them and then get to work and then repot them and then get lecker cleaned. It was just, the kitchen was poof, explosion. Nothing was moved, nothing was changed. Anyway, my daughter was very patient in those times. So this one is, yeah, a very slow grower from my understanding, but she's holding on, and you can see here I have already used the small leca, and I did repot her once, and she's happy in that setup. Grows her growth during winter, which really is a bummer, because here's another thing. Let's go to fertilizing. All right. Seedlings, yes, we want to give them fertilizer, and we want to push them to grow nice, strong growth. However, there is a limit, especially when it comes to what's more important is the root system. And if we go overboard with the fertilizer when it comes to seeds, the first thing we're going to take out and destroy is the root system. And with that being said, it's a fine balance to the fertilizer concentration correctly. And I have to say, while I do not have, bombastic results with my supersized growths, and you would think that after 5 years of having this orchid in my collection, because she also arrived in 2018, that I should have gotten her to bloom by now. That is because I am so conservative, especially when I see orchids growing 3 roots per growth. And that's where I'm thinking, one day circumstances change and I can stop the decline of leaves in the back, like right here, all right? I prefer to be very careful. And then bit by bit, up the concentration. I focus on calcium nitrate when the orchid comes into active growth, but nothing goes above 50 parts per million. And I do that across the board just because otherwise my mind is going to go mad. I'm going to, when this stream finishes and starts processing and everything, I'm going to link my recipe video in the description of this stream if you want to go and check that out, because I do address seedlings and recipes for seedling care fertilizing supplements. And they may differ from what I'm saying here now, but that is based on the fact that I am conservative with what I can advise safely, confidently, as opposed to what I'm trying to do with my collection and my environment. So take it as a guideline, something you can start with, work with, and then you can also screenshot that recipe card and you can write your own notes on it. That's how it was designed and made up. So that I shall link when this video is processing. So 50 parts per million is what I'm doing just to keep the orchid alive, give her the nutrients she needs, and eventually, hopefully, another nice new growth will come with more roots. And then peu à peu, little by little, we can up the fertilizer concentration. I would not go with, I'm going to get my orchid to bloom in 3 years from receiving her seedlings. If that happens, great. But that shouldn't be the main focus. That shouldn't be the target. The aim is to grow the orchid strong, and the rest will fall into place eventually. And if that means your orchid takes longer to bloom, then at least you haven't lost your orchid or put a seedling into rescue mode right out of the gate, like I did with my little deflask seedlings. Meanwhile, the deflask seedlings didn't have enough humidity. So there's that. Anyway, so when it comes to fertilizer, be conservative, see what she can take. And another thing as well is watch the surface of your media. If you see salt build up, it's too much. All right? And you can see that in the back here, I have some leca with salt buildup. If you can, I'm trying to protect the mic from the wind. Right there, that is old. And then you can see that the root along it didn't fare so well. Okay, this one is not working. It's not functioning anymore. All right, and that's when then I pipe down. Do not worry about salt buildup on older roots in the back, because older roots on orchids eventually will get salt buildup. Okay, it goes. It's part of the territory. No matter how you flush, which you should do a lot, no matter how you flush, it can happen that very old roots will get salt buildup, but that is only because of the duration and the time that they have spent in the pot. It's not an indicator that you have put in too much fertilizer into the pot. Your margin for too much salt or too much fertilizer is the general appearance of the surface of the media. And if it looks, let's say 99.9% clean, then you've got the right quantity. So there's that one. And let me get another one. I think this one also was a gift. So yes, this is from the Orchid Room, Melissa Walker and Michael McCarthy. Now, this is another Cattleya maxima. I love my Maximus, but you see, it doesn't appear to have made much progress. She arrived in 2020. And that is also because seedling Lekka, her adult counterpart, is a vigorous orchid. Even though she came as a major rescue into my collection, once she was rescued because she was a bigger orchid with bigger structures. And of course, in 2018 and the winters of 2019, I had lights and heat mats going, which kept the leca nice and toasty, which is something the root system loves on a warm to hot grower. So she looks to be in, let's say, dire straits, but she looks worse than she really is. This for me in the back is normal. It may not be normal in your case if you've got the right conditions. You shouldn't be losing seedling leaves at this stage. Usually, once you see a size jump in a new growth, which could this be a size jump? Yeah, it's possible because the sheath is already taller than the pseudobulb before. But once you see a size jump, you can anticipate small leaves to start to disappear. So that's okay for one pseudobulb. It is not okay for the subsequent back, all right? That is also fertilizer deficiency. That is my situation, but if you see that happening, it should only happen when your seedling shows a size jump. Once that happens, you can start adjusting your fertilizer and raising it a little bit higher to 70 parts per million. I would not double it, not just yet, and just see how she copes and if any more decline happens in the back of the growths. Right. That is me talking. I've got Sunnyside on the patio. I can't believe it. On a cloudy day, Sunnyside is here. Hello, beautiful. How are you? It's good to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by. And Sandy's Orchids is here as well. Cartwheels around the patio. Imagine it, imagine it. No, I'm not going to do it. Otherwise, we're going to have to need an ambulance. But anyway, okie dokie. I'm just going to go back for a little bit. I always find that young growths burn, baby burn. Yes, they do. And that can also result in leaf tip burn from too much fertilizer. That can also happen right at the tippy top. It's a fine balance. But if you do a calcium nitrate treatment the moment you see new growth starting, or even just new roots, it could be that the roots come first and the new growth hasn't even emerged yet. Calcium nitrate, get ahead of the game. And of course, there is this wonderful, let's say, little detail about seaweed. Be very conservative with that as well. We like the growth hormones, and we think we're going to get a root system that's, like octopus xylee. Just be conservative with it, because if we go too high with those hormones, the orchid itself already has the same hormones. All we're doing is supplementing. For example, if I may just do this analogy, I have a natural acidic body. If I, and well, it's very, but pineapple, if I drink too much of it, what the problem was in Kenya, can you imagine? Pineapple and fresh orange juice, my fingers would start to crack open, the fingertips, okay? And then if I didn't stop, the whole hand would start to burn. I wouldn't be able to pick up hot things. It was just extremely painful. The moment I stopped with all this acidic nonsense with the fruit, etc., everything calmed down, went back to normal, and when I realized that, I had to pace myself. Okay, now that is an analogy to what orchid with the hormones are already in the orchid doing what they're doing, signaling ghrelins, cytokinin are doing what they're doing, focusing all in these parts and these new structures. Our seaweed is like a supplement. It's a little boost. Too much of it will cause issues, and the orchid's going to get confused. You will also possibly get a wonderful new growth that you think, this is awesome, but it's not going to be a healthy new growth. It's going to have weird cell structure, let's say weak, not weird, weak can tone it down on the supplement when it comes to seaweed, and just understand what you're doing is giving it a little, here you go, just a little bit. And I would say anywhere, I think I've got on my recipe cards for seedlings around 25 parts per million to 30. And if anybody is not using a TDS meter, when it comes to seaweed, without having that gadget, even though I highly recommend it, you can, when it comes to the brown seaweed, pretty much, let's say, your water needs to look like a weak Earl Grey tea. All right? Now that is what your water needs to look like if you're going to have a very low parts per million equivalent of seaweed in the water. Not brown. That is a very high concentration. That can be all the way up to 1,000 parts per million depending on product. But if you can, million are safe. However, please, I implore you, if you can, get a parts per million, get a TDS meter, and start learning about parts per million. Let me tell you, I'm just so happy I did that. And now it's almost like I don't need them anymore, but I always fall back on them because we have our days where our hand is a little bit more aggressive than what we should. And then it's like, oh, how much do I have in there now? And then you can dilute accordingly and not have to worry about these details. More audio loss. And that is probably because the gate opened and closed. ¿Qué hago? ¿Qué hago? All right, what was the last thing anybody heard? Thank you, Sandy. What was the last thing anybody heard? Leah Purdy says, I only use CalMag and seaweed from time to time and half of the suggested amount each. I now prefer to use... Well, I'm glad you're using slow release fertilizer. I am not a good slow release fertilizer user. The concept with less is more has not entered my brain yet, so I just stay away from it completely. Fine again. TDS. TDS was the last one. Okay, I just implore you, thank you very much for that reminder. I just implore you to please get a TDS meter. And if you have any questions, it would sound like it can be very overwhelming at the beginning. Never be afraid to ask. Ninja, after all, is also an acronym. While we listen to a car go by. Let me go a little further away. Ninja is an acronym, and it is never in need, just ask. I don't know if anybody has seen a very old video of mine where I've put that in, but yes, apart from the fact that it's my name with my middle letter as well. No, it's actually also an acronym. So please take that and let me know if you have any questions about that. All right, let me scroll up again. So right, I love it. There's a lot we could say about that. That's amazing. Oh, yeah, we love them too much. We love them too much. We see people with their beautiful big orchids, and we want to, have the same thing. And we forget where we're at in our environment. It all factors in. We have to be super careful that we do what is right in our environment. And if there's any doubt, ask the grower, the video you're watching, ask them specifics if they can maybe guide you when it comes to your environment, if what they are saying could also apply to your environment. Because while we have so many orchid channels and so much advice on the internet, we also need to make sure that we either follow somebody that has a similar conditions as us, or if we like the information, what they're saying, and it resonates with us, in the comments, just ask, I like that, I'd like to do that, but this. What do you suggest? So always ask questions like that. I used to be a very curious child. I still am a very curious child. I can now be an obnoxious adult because that's all I do is ask questions. Not because I'm doubting people. That's another thing many people get wrong. It's not that. I'm challenging the information. I'm asking a question based on what I would like to maybe take away for me and my orchids. But it's very difficult, especially in this day and age now with the channel. Sometimes things get lost in translation, but here, do not be shy. I don't take these things personally. Okay, here we have Cattleya velutina, and this is a classic one with a size jump. This is definitely a size jump, even though the practice down here, I know what this one looked like when it started, and I'm loving the look of this. Species doesn't know whether she wants to be a bifoliate or a unifoliate, which can also happen on seedlings. Sometimes they still get confused. They haven't got the groove yet. They don't know who they are yet. She's reverting back to a bifoliate. To my understanding, she is supposed to be a bifoliate. So I am loving what I'm seeing right here. And she should also have been repotted during the winter. But the reason I'm leaving her is I have my small leca. Everything is going great. Her 3 roots that she grew. I'm showing you orchids that are really challenging to get to really thrive in my environment because they're not happy. You know, it's not like they're growing roots out of the wazoo. So if you've got one that's more generous on the root front, you wouldn't be needing to wait to repot as long as I do, especially if you're in organic media. But I'm loving the fact that the 3 roots she grew over the winter, they just chugged along, are doing fabulously. I'm liking that I don't have any salt buildup. And well, she had a little bit of a flush and a drink of calcium nitrate this morning because mucho encouraging right there. Okay, I'm going to check and see the chat and hope that I'm... Oh, always question everything if you can and hope to get an answer. And there's another thing. An answer can bring forth, prompt more questions. And that is why I like these live streams, and I hope that one day when I do evening live streams again, that we can have a Q&A with somebody on panel with me. Because you see, it's not just about me, my conditions. I long and yearn for the time when I was growing in high humidity. I have a lot of mistakes in my second collection when I first had to put orchids in a pot. So these things are recollections for me as well, and I love to share them because at the end of the day, what you see is mostly inorganic in my collection. And you might think, yeah, that doesn't jive with me. I don't grow my orchids like that. Yeah, well, I don't know, am I 57 or am I 58? I don't know. My daughter told me once and I forgot. Anyway, I'm that old. Let's just say that age is out of the equation now. But I like going back in time and talking about the time when I thought orchid growing was easy and I was 12. Literally, not because I'm childish, but you know, I was 12 when I started, and then back in the 90s when I started again, and I was frustrated. I don't know if I was 22 by that time or 23, but I wasn't young anymore and I was frustrated, but we made it work. So there's a lot of background history as well. Cactus Gantus in the patio. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you. Love the cacti. I cannot grow them. I love them though, especially as they're all in bloom now. Please put your link in the description, Cactus Gund. So if people want to find your channel, they can. Always Diaz. Why did I put my last video? Oh, every time I finish a live stream, I put it on private so that YouTube can process it. Because I have a lot of activity in behind the hedge, sometimes cars with music. If the microphone picks that up, YouTube will hit me with a copyright strike, and then we've got bigger issues. So I put it on private right when I finish with the stream so that YouTube can process it. And if I have copyright issues, I can edit those out and then upload the video again. It's more for the protection of myself and let's say the channel so that it doesn't get hit with a strike. Because if I do get a strike, then I can either counteract it and it just gets really... Okay, are we back? Are we back? Are we back? Are we back? No, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Ah, ah. Can you hear me? ¿Qué pasa hoy? Ooh, we're back. Phew. Okay, what I'm going to do is just move you back a little bit, and I'm going to be, instead of yapping away, looking at these orchids. If there's anything, I can always bring more orchids over here. I'm very concerned about the location by the hedge today. It's too dodgy. So yeah, YouTube is definitely, it's a navigating game. But you got to make sure that, let's just say if I make a mistake, I want to be able to correct it without affecting the channel as such. So that's why I do that. And it's a nuisance. I mean, while I love living in Europe, it's a nuisance that I'm stuck in between the time zones. So, I would love to have more time zones involved in the whole YouTube live stream experience. But maybe as the days get a little bit warmer, I can shift things to later in the day as well. And then, but then I lose Australia. So anyway, I hope this is okay, and I hope that the replays are also of interest. And that's why I did all these questions, because I wanted to put timestamps, and here I am yapping away again. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. As long as I'm back with Lelia Briageri that we showed at the beginning. She's my Rapiculus Lelia. First time with 2 spikes, and she came in a very pathetic state to the patio. So you just saw some seedlings. This was like a new import, bare root, etc. And she has recovered beautifully, absolutely beautifully. Contrary to what people say, also in semi-hydroponics. So it works, it can be done. Sandy's Orchids asked me, how is the garlic oil? It's the alcohol, garlic alcohol. I don't use garlic oil. It's working great, absolutely great. I have to be on top of it though. I have to make sure that I find them quick enough, especially when it comes to the dendrobiums with their new leaves, especially the nobilies. Yeah, gotta be right there on top of them. Otherwise, I'm still loving it. These seedlings always had issues, and I am absolutely comfortable with the fact that I just have to just paint away a little bit, all gone, and we're good for another 2 weeks. Alrighty, so we talked about the questions. Keep asking, because I like reminiscing. And I'm going to go into my description because I wrote out question after question after question. Okay, so we did talk about watering orchid seedlings and then how often. Just going to say one thing, do not let your media dry out. This is not a time for a wet-dry cycle. We talked about light. Keep it bright, but do not expose her to any kind of extreme light that the mature orchid variety would be able to tolerate. They're babies. With our babies now, we're also putting sunglasses on them, etc. We put an umbrella up over their pram, blah, blah, blah. All of that fun stuff. We keep them nice and, let's say, protected from anything that could pose a stress to the babies, but keeping in mind that the mature adult would probably be able to tolerate much different conditions, but that's not what seedlings can handle. We talked about what is the temperature ideal range for the seedlings. I highly recommend it 18 to 25 degrees Celsius, 30 maximum if you have high humidity. Be very careful about dropping of humidity. And we're going to have a bit of a welcoming committee because my daughter is coming home for her rest. It's been excuse me, it's just a fleeting moment because now they're off to the front door. Okay, can orchid seedlings be grown indoors? Absolutely, 100%, especially if you're an outdoor grower. I highly recommend that you bring your seedling indoors, give them a bright sunny windowsill where they will get nice shaded but bright light. That is one of the things that I also think. I think indoor seedling growing is much safer for the seedlings. How do you transplant orchid seedlings? I highly recommend an up pot. When you have the root system that is growing and it's growing out of the pot, etc., that media. You just take some of whatever falls off naturally. You don't want to be messing with the root system. If you can cup the root system, lift it out of the pot and place fresh media around the gaps of what your orchid's new pot size will be. All right, and as little as possible. Okay, so if you're growing with inorganic media, you can it's quite all right to go with a pot size that is extreme and looks silly with your seedling, as long as you keep the humidity up. All right, you need to make sure humidity, 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 but your pot size can be in accordance to, let's say you want to keep the orchid in there for 4 years. Don't want to disturb her. She's a seedling after all. Get her established. It's fine with inorganic media to increase the pot size. If you're with organic media, you just want to make sure that you have a pot size that your media mix doesn't pose a challenge for you when it comes to watering and it dries out too quickly, okay? How do you prevent orchid seedling diseases? Give them calcium nitrate and keep a vigilant eye on them. It is hard to prevent orchid seedling diseases because of their tiny, let's say keep saying tiny, their tender cuticles around them. It's just lush. It's an easy go-to buffet for pests. So vigilance and give them calcium nitrate. And then at least we can get the structures to be a little bit stronger for the age of the seedling, but it is no guarantee. Your eye and your vigilance are the guarantee that things will be okay. We talked about fertilizing orchid seedlings. And yes, I'm so glad I wrote these down. I forgot this. How long does it take for orchid seedlings to bloom? Okay, you just saw a whole gaggle of seedlings that have been in my collection, the majority of them, 5 years. They arrived in 2018, and they haven't bloomed. So let's just say you have a very, very honest nursery selling you a seedling and says it's near blooming size. You have to have a very honest nursery because it can take 3 years for a seedling to bloom. If you buy it as a seedling, it can take 3 years. In the case of Michael McCarthy, it can take 1.5 years out of the flask. That's Michael McCarthy. Please do not try that on your own seedling unless you have exactly the same conditions as Michael McCarthy and exactly the same orchid. Because some will bloom faster than others depending on who their parents are or the species as such. However, normally, they don't want to tell you that you're buying a seedling, and they will always sell you a near blooming size because then we anticipate hopefully 1 year. The reality is 2 to 3 years, and that is the case with my amethyst in the back here. My Laelia amethyst came to me as a near blooming size when in actual fact she was a seedling, and it took 3 years. She is a hybrid, so a species can take longer. And also, it all is relative when it comes to your conditions. And if you have continuous conditions, as I mentioned before, then your seedling is going to be much more productive, much more proactive, and grow much better than if you have the fluctuating conditions, let's say, like I have. So to expect a seedling to bloom, I would say it can take 5, and then depending on orchid and your conditions, up to 6, possibly 8 years. And then, if we speak about depending on orchid, excusez-moi, let me just show you. Back in 2020, I predicted blooming time for my Dimorphorchis lowii, this one, in 2030. I'm going to change that and say 2055, 2060. Because the growth speed is also very, very relative, okay? The Dimorphorchis lowii is one that will probably only bloom in about 50 years. I won't experience this, but it is a challenge. It was fun to grow her, and we haven't seen her in a long time either, and she's doing great. I can see a massive size jump when it comes to the structures she has now. So remember that depending on the variety of your orchid, that includes slipper orchids. Oh, slipper orchids are fast growers compared to this one. But it can take 5 years. I would say anywhere up to 5 to 8 years, if not 10. Okay, indoor seedling. What are common problems with orchid seedlings? Reduction in humidity, loss of humidity, and underwatering. Underwatering being letting your media dry out and have those roots struggling. So the two go kind of hand in hand. How do I acclimate orchid seedlings to new environments? The same as you would with a mature orchid. Makes absolutely no difference. Don't put them in high light. Don't expose them to any high temperatures. Don't let's say repot straight away. Watch. And watching a seedling can take 6 months to 8 months because a seedling will be the first to stall and go, I don't like this. And remember, it always comes from a very perfect environment. And then it goes into a dark box. And then whatever happens during transportation, it's all stressful. And anything stressful on a young baby orchid like that, it's going to come out of the box and go, no. Like, no and no. I'm not having it. Like a child, stomps its feet, crosses its arms, and has a good pout. And then you just say, okay, I shall feed you, I shall give you light, I shall love you, I shall make you understand I mean well, and just wait. Try to push it too soon and it could be a problem. So just be like you would with a mature orchid, acclimating phase, watch, observe, and see what happens. How do I deal with pests on orchid seedlings? I recommend garlic alcohol. As per with any orchid, I wouldn't use anything harsh on those little tender structures. Be super cautious. Maybe even to begin with wiping it down with hydrogen peroxide, some water. Use a different cotton disc on every single structure because you don't know if you're going to be transmitting anything. But for me, garlic alcohol has worked the best, and it's something I use across my entire collection. And you know what? We can have an armoire full of weapons, let's say, arsenal to go against fighting diseases for our orchids. If you can reduce it down to one that you are comfortable with, that works across the board, including your vigilance, that is your best weapon, then you're set. You're good to go. And how do I handle orchid seedlings during winter? Baby them. Baby them with the temperatures I've mentioned, 18, 20 degrees to 25 degrees. Now, I know heating costs you don't have to tell me. I don't even heat anymore. I can't afford it. So at least there you have some respite if you are living within your home and you have a certain climate, like your heater is going on. If it's fine for you, it'll be fine for your seedlings, but just make sure once again that humidity does not drop. And I know I repeat myself, but as I always say, if I start to repeat myself, it's because it is super important. A lot can be avoided if we can make sure that the structures of our seedlings are not allowed to dehydrate, dry out, and humidity drops just because we've got, let's say, the heater on. Okay? Right. That was a lot of browsing through the questions. And we go up, and we go up. Thank you, Verdant Turf, for putting in Cactus's link. Thank you so much, Sunnyside. I am sorry that I'm only seeing your comment now, but I so appreciate you here on the patio on a cloudy day. I love that name. I will always love that name. Okay, my audio is going in and out. This is... Okay, that was before. Alevis said that about the things getting complicated. Oh, I scrolled way up there. Eggs in the middle of the night. That's always a good thing. Midnight snack, fantastic. And Denise is hungry now, and Hey, Richard, it's good to see you. You've been listening, oh, yes, that's what I do as well. When I am out and about, I have a podcast going in my ear as well. Alrighty, Linda, I hope that you enjoy your hike. Make sure that you've got everything you need. Get your Saint Bernard out so that you have all the liquids coming with you. You be safe and enjoy your day. I appreciate you stopping by. Thank you so much. And I am also going to hydrate. Just one moment, please. Hold, please. All right. Okay, any more thoughts that are going to pop into my mind would be rando. Just having a look around and a think around to see if I've missed something that I could still show you. I mean, there's a lot going on the patio, but this is the subject. And if there's nothing further, if there are no more questions specifically, then I am going to call it. Not because I'm rushing, but there's no need to stop anybody from thinking, oh, I'm going to miss something, I'm going to miss something. And then I'm here not really doing anything. Don't want to waste anybody's time. Something we don't normally get back. Once we spend time, it's gone. So I appreciate your time. Thank you to the Philippines for representing the Philippines here, the verdant turf. Thank you to Texas. And if I'm not mentioning your state, it's either that my mind, which is like a sieve, has forgotten. Thank you so much to the UK. Thank you also to Portugal. I have a neighbor. And I want to say thank you anyway to everybody that tuned in, that didn't chat, that was here. Baby, California as well. I am trying every Saturday, weather conditions permitting, yes. Definitely, I'm trying to do every Saturday a live stream. Around about this time, we may go a little bit later as July and August hits. We may just do a night stream as well outside, so it's not as noisy, and maybe people want to come up and take a link and we can just have a session. I was thinking of doing one on Midsummer Night on the 21st of June, but my Shakespeare skills are, I'm out of practice. Do a Midsummer Night's Dream out here, and you'll just hear me snoring. Don't be sorry. Oh my goodness, baby. Don't be sorry. All the streams, once they've processed, go back up, and usually that is on a Sunday afternoon. I wish it would happen sooner, but I can't. It takes forever for YouTube to process the streams. I always look at them. I'm always checking before I go to bed on a Saturday night, but they're still processing. So please don't feel in any way, shape, or form that you need to apologize. Goodness me, I am doing this on a weekend after all, and people have weekend plans. Garlic alcohol, there we go, and Bauer spray. All right. I can get Bauer here as well. So, you represent the Philippines and Texas. That is so true, Leah. That is so true. Absolutely. Okie dokie. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have yourself a fabulous rest of your Saturday. And I'm going to use the word rest and transition. I hope you're already having a great rest during your Saturday night. See what I did there? And, well, I hope to see you in the next video. But on the condition, please, that you do stay safe. Take care. Bye.